Okay, so good evening, everyone. Buenas noches a todos y todas. Welcome to our OLLAS Charla Accomplishments and Challenges of Women in the Workplace. My name is Yuriko Doku. I'm the OLLAS Assistant Director and the Community Engagement Committee Chair for the UNO Staff Advisory Council. We're very delighted to have you all here join us tonight. I'm very honored to be the moderator for this event. We have three talented Latina women joining us as panelists. Let me introduce them. Our first panelist is Liz Codina. She is a Community Investment Officer from the Peter Kiewit Foundation. She's a UNO alum who holds a Bachelor's Science degree in Latin American Studies and Political Science with a concentration in foreign and national security affairs. She has devoted her life to public service and centers her work around equity and creating access to opportunity and supporting marginalized communities. She's a strong advocate for Latinx community, especially women and young professionals. Liz, welcome. Bienvenida.
Thanks for having me.
Our second panelist is Dulce Sherman. She's the owner and chief officer of Sherman Executive Consulting. She holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Human Resources Management and a Master of Arts degree in Management and Organizational Development graduate level certificate. She has 25 years of human resources and operation leadership experience in the nonprofit sector and also in the profit sector. Dulce has dedicated her life to serving the community. Dulce, welcome, bienvenida. And last but not least, our third panelist is Cristina Castro-Matukewicz. She's the Community Affairs Vice President for Wells Fargo. She holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Psychology from Universidad del Norte and a specialization in Human Resources Management from the Escuela of Administración de Negocios in Colombia. She also holds a Master in Business Administration from Bellevue University. She has received multiple professional accreditation from various organizations. Cristina, welcome, bienvenida. Before moving forward, I just want to say that we really like to hear from our attendees and include your voice in the charla. So please ask any questions or comments at the end of the presentation during our Q&A session by using the chat feature. So we will monitor it very closely. As we all know, we are celebrating Women's History Month, and OLLAS wanted to be part of this celebration by hosting this event. As research has shown, women's participation in the labor force has significantly increased and has been extensively examined. Areas such as education, politics, the nonprofit sector, and business has seen an increasing representation of women in leadership roles. However, and it's not a secret, men continue to surpass those leadership roles, and women still face challenges to succeed at work, in spite of knowing that their participation makes brings a very diverse perspective to address critical issues that affect families, societies, and economies. So therefore, this event will take a deeper look at women's accomplishments and challenges when it comes to advancing in the workplace. Additionally, we can continue what we can do to make sure what we can do in order to continue recognizing their contribution to the society and establishing gender equality. So questions to our panelists, questions we'll be asking to our panelists to learn about their thoughts on this matter. So we can start our conversation. So let's start with Liz. Hi, Liz. So our first question is, please tell us a little bit about what still need to do in order to achieve gender equality at work?
Sure. Well, once again, thank you so much for having me as a panelist. So excited to join these wonderful ladies and all of our guests today. When I think about achieving gender equality in the workplace, I typically center that concept around four main areas. The first is hiring. The second is this general idea of inclusion in the workplace. And then the theme of leadership. And lastly, pay practices. So, the first, when we look at hiring, a lot of institutions of higher education, including Stanford and Harvard, have done extensive research. And their research shows that women are much less likely to get hired for positions when compared to male counterparts, even when they have the same amount of experience or even more experience. And we know that's a problem. So a solution to that is to really encourage in workplaces to really increase their diversity in hiring and to review their current hiring practices. So a lot of that has to do with just doing internal audits and having conversations with executive leadership about company values and what those practices are, from your HR hiring staff all the way to the executive level. The second theme that I want to touch on is inclusion. So we know, again, from research that unfortunately women are left out of a lot of key decision-making practices in workplaces, and this typically is because of just traditional gender stereotypes. We've all heard about the decisions that are made outside of the office, on the golf course, at the bar and things of that nature. And oftentimes, it's been my experience that women, especially when you have a male-dominated executive team, are left out of that. So a possible solution for employers and employees is to really take a look at what the company has as targeted values and what the culture is, and to start to incorporate a feedback loop to make sure that you're hearing from females on your team about what can be done to break down those barriers. And, the next is leadership. So again, women are unfortunately often missing from a lot of those executive leadership positions, even though they are qualified or overqualified for them. So a possible solution for that is to really provide mentorship for female staff, and also to create access and opportunities. So to be really intentional about bringing people in, just looking around, the table to see who's missing and bringing women in. And, the last one is that huge disparity in pay. So, white women, when compared to white males, make 82 cents on the dollar. Black women make 62 cents on the dollar, and Latinas make 55 cents for each dollar that a white non-Hispanic male makes. So, one thing that I have even encouraged internally at some of the places that I've worked at is for organizations to take a look at their pay practices and their pay philosophy. So audit it. But then the second part of that, which some companies miss the mark on, is to fix it. So think about back pay, right? Women over a 40-year career lose out on over $1 million of earnings because of that gap, which is astonishing, right? I mean, think about the things that you could do in a lifetime with $1 million. So really, if you remember two things, I would say women support women. So make sure that you're an advocate for other women on your team. And if you don't identify as a woman, then be an ally.
Thank you so much, Liz. So I think that something that we can take from here is like how diversity, equity, and inclusion is so important when we talk about gender equality. for any, taking into account in any organization. Thank you. So now my next question is to Dulce. So Dulce, hi. In terms of employers, what do you think they should do to transform their workplace policies and programs to better support women?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for this opportunity to be able to come and talk to you and be with some amazing women that I respect highly. I think one of the foundations of any organization is really being able to talk to the people that work for you, the talent. We expect people to align to values and culture without really truly talking to them and finding out where they come from, whether that's North, South, or West Omaha. And we expect them to fit into this nice, culture without really understanding who they are. We really need to do a better job of finding out of who they are. So what is an organization doing to understand the demographics of their companies, like gender and race and age and disabilities and any other things that they may be aware of? Having that dialogue, that regular dialogue with their employees will help them understand what is important to their employees. And that can be as traditional as having a roundtable discussion with their employees, or having a formalized survey where they find out the demographics and what are the things that are top of mind to their employees, what's important to them, and keep abreast of any legislative changes that may be impacting your workforce. We know in Omaha here, based on a study that Christian presented at the Latino Centers, we know that our demographics are going to change in the next 10 years. It's going to become more diverse. We're going to see an increase by 25% of diversity in our workforces. So what are employers doing to prepare for that workforce? And also, what are they doing to ensure that they're retaining that talent? When they have an opportunity to look at legislation, the changes in demographics, looking at their current demographics and identifying best practices, then that's when they can start developing those policies and programs that make sense to their employees. And especially for women, we know that with COVID and the recent changes, there's been a lot of women dropping out of the workforce. And a lot of these women are educated women because, let's face it, women are still predominantly responsible for the household. Even though there's 2-income families, they carry a lot of responsibilities. So again, what are we doing as an organization to ensure that we are compensating women equitably and providing the services or flexibility so that they can keep that job while maintaining their households and raising their children? I'm huge on, it's so important to have that connection with your employees. There's a lot of leaders right now that, you see the rounded leader that is either strong in technical skills or they're strong in soft skills. And it really matters to be able to identify with your employees, and whether that means that you do a round robin and go talk to your people, or through Zoom meetings, or call them and show that you really care about them and what's worrying them. Because the more that we can show employees that we care, they're going to reciprocate that through working harder, to being committed. And when you develop programs that based on their feedback, that's when they know that you're paying attention and that you really care.
Thank you so much, Dulce. So it's so important to have that connection and communication with employers. So in that way, they know exactly how the employees are facing those challenges at work. Great. So the next question is for Cristina. So do you think having children hinders your chances of advancing your position in the workplace?
Well, I do have children. So I can tell you about my experience when I have a 15-year-old at home, so I am still raising children. But I would say the answer to the question is a big depends. It depends on where do you live, which country do you live, where do you work, and what type of work you do. For example, countries that have, and this information, I have done some research on this because I am a big advocate for women's and girls issues, and I am passionate about it. I have 2 girls, so for me that's, you know, I fight for them, for a better future for them, and also because I work at a big corporation. I work at Wells Fargo, and you know, you see everything there. So I advocate for, specifically Liz referred to that, I advocate for gender equity pay issues, because that's a part is related to my answer. It depends on how much you make. If you are able to hire a nanny, then probably having children is not going to hinder your career that much. If you live in a country that offers 2 years or 3 years of paid maternity leave like Canada, maybe that's not going to be that much of an issue. And if you work at a company that supports women at work, then it's going to be less of an issue. In the opposite, if you look at a person that works at a retail location that is direct customer contact, makes minimum wage, have 3 children, is huge. I mean, they are probably going to tell you that, yeah, it does, because they are not going to be able to work overtime. They are not going to be able to attend activities that are going to help promote their career on the right direction. As for my experience, I will tell you that when I was having my daughters, I was very conscious about this. And here is where my personal experience comes into play, because I am an immigrant woman. I was starting my career in the United States when I started having children. And I remember reading a study that Deloitte published at that time about this issue, and reading that women who step off their careers to raise children for at least 2 years were set back in their progress at least 5 to 10 years. And that was like in 1998 when I had my first daughter. So I read those studies, and I was like, I can't do that. I can't leave my job to go raise my daughters. And I put myself through the big ordeal of raising children while I had a full-time job. It wasn't easy, but I still think to this day that for me, and I can only speak that about myself because each person is different, that for me was the right decision, because I don't think that I wouldn't be where I am at today if I would have left the workforce at that time. But it was a huge, huge trade-off that I have to make. So it depends. That's the answer.
Thank you, Cristina. I also can emulate with your experience. I have a 11-year-old son, and sometimes you think, okay, do I have to, stay home and not continue, pursue a career in education, for example. So, but I think we have to keep that in mind, that we can be successful as well, and also we have to face some challenges. So thank you so much.
But the thing is that we shouldn't have to make those decisions and trade-offs. Men don't have to think about that.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the piece there is the equity piece that doesn't exist yet, especially in the United States. I mean, it's amazing that countries like Brazil are doing better about this issue than we are, the #1 developed nation in the world. It's a huge equity issue. Men can have as many children as they want, and they don't have to worry about who's going to take them to school in most cases.
That's true. Thank you, Cristina. Mm-hmm. So our next question is for Liz. So do you have positive women role models? And if so, were they difficult to find?
So, when I first took a look at this question, I, had a huge smile on my face, because 3 of those women are on this screen right now. When I think about, when my education career started, Yuriko, you were one of the first female mentors that I, crossed paths with. And as I started my first professional role at UNO shortly after graduation, and became more deeply involved in community, I had the wonderful opportunity to meet both Dulce and Cristina. And I've had the amazing opportunity to work with all of you and so many other inspiring women in different roles. So, starting off as having, someone in a mentor capacity, and then being their colleague or serving on a board together in the community. And, one of the things that I highly encourage, especially women and young professionals, to be thoughtful about is to take a look around in your life and ask yourself, do I have a kitchen cabinet, or like my personal board of directors? And that's something that has really helped me greatly, because it is really nice, to have sounding boards and people that you can fully trust and be authentic with, so you can talk about the challenges, the barriers that you face, not only in the workplace, but in life, right? One of the things that I really center my life around is just authentic relationship building. So, just taking the time to also give back. So just because you may have someone on, that personal board that helps coach and mentor you, relationships are always a two-way street, and there's always something that you can give somebody else, regardless of tenure, experience, age. And, one of the things that I always think about, so I grew up in a household with immigrant parents. My parents are not college educated. My parents originally came to the United States undocumented. And of course, that has since then changed. It's been about, 30 plus years ago. But the whole idea of coming to university was a brand new concept, or being in a professional role was a brand new concept. I grew up low income. I was Pell eligible when I came to the university. So now, as a funder that focuses on statewide initiatives, I manage a $28 million portfolio, which is beyond my wildest dreams. And I would never have been able to get here if it wasn't for the strong women and other mentors and allies in my life that have taken a chance and taken the time to break those ceilings. And that's why, I encourage everyone to do your part and break those ceilings, because we are just at the tip of the iceberg and there's a lot of work to be done.
Thank you so much, Liz. And so that's something important, networking with other women to continue this ladder, right? To continue working for our careers. Thank you, Liz. So our next question is for Dulce. Dulce, what steps can be taken to make sure that women are receiving adequate and equal pay?
Well, Liz mentioned some of the statistics earlier, and with respect to pay, we know that women, on average, white women, in comparison to men, are making 80 cents on the dollar, whereas women of color, particularly Latinas, are making 54 to 55 cents on the dollar. We know that's a fact. And for me, what I would advocate hugely on is the sense of transparency. Find out where we are under utilized, where are the disparities in the pay, and try to do something about it. And how you can do that is to have a formal compensation study with an organization, hire a third party to conduct a survey and find out where our women are being paid in comparison to male comparators in the same position. And if there's any gaps, then make a plan to remedy the situation. There's no reason why, if there's any problems, why an employer should be ashamed. If they can just step up to the plate and say, we have some disparities in pay, and this is what we plan to do as a result to correct it. But I also think that part of pay, when we ask women to take a job, even in the offer process, women being able to facilitate through that offer process and being able to counter when an employer makes an offer to them, being able to facilitate through that. Even when an employer offers you the position, being able to say, well, what is the position being paid at? Is that the minimum of the range? Is this the midpoint? How do others compare in comparison to my experience and qualifications? And the other thing too is that you should also be factoring internal equity. So anytime that someone is hired in the organization, that employer, if they're doing a good job, should be always asking, what is that person bringing to this organization? And if I'm going to compensate them higher, then I better be looking at my top performer. Is that person a male? Is that person a female? We better be looking at everyone in that position and then do the right thing. If you don't have the budget, then go to your board or whoever makes the decisions and put a plan together to remedy the situation. The other thing too, I would say that because COVID has impacted women and their flexibility and being able to work or staying at home, I think you're seeing a new era of workplace opportunities, meaning that you don't have to be at work to get the job done. If we're going to retain women, pay isn't always the solution. While we think it is very important. There's other things that you could be compensating women. Like, for example, if you're hiring someone that has a lot of debt in education, are you paying that loan off for that person? And again, leveling it out for that person, especially candidates of color who probably don't have as much opportunity to scholarships, are probably going to have higher debt and student debt. So are there other things that you could also do in addition to looking at pay that you could make sure that that compensation stays whole, as well as your benefits? What are you offering to ensure that the benefits you're offering women want to come work for you, that you're being equitable? Are you paying for daycare? If women have children, are you supplementing part of that benefit so that they have the ability to not worry? I will say that when I was having my small children, that was one of my biggest things that I worried about was the sitter. You know, are my kids happy? Are they safe? Can I go home and check on them, kind of thing, or will I be preoccupied at work? The more that we can as employers find solutions so that women feel that they have that full autonomy at work, again, because they have so many different roles outside of the home and at work, the better we're going to be able to attract and pay them and retain them.
Great, Dulce. And something that we're going to see is like how after the pandemic, everything's going to change, definitely, in the next few years, right? Okay, our next question is for Cristina. So have you achieved a healthy work-life balance? And if so, how did you do it?
So a healthy work-life balance. Well, the focus here should be on the last word, balance. It is a balance, which means that sometimes you're going to be okay and sometimes you are going to be unbalanced. Even within the same day, that can happen. You may be feeling great in the morning, you got the kids where they needed to be, you show up at the meeting on time, you feel on top of the game, and then halfway through the day, you get a phone call that something happened and you need to leave everything and go take care of it at home. There goes your balance. So I think for me, I felt for many years that I was unbalanced. And then I started looking at it from that perspective. It's not about, balance is not about getting it right all the time. Balance is about doing what you can at the right time and with the right people. So, and I have to say, personally for me, I learned to push back. I remember when I, one time, so at the school, the K-8 school that my daughter is going to, they call me when there were issues. They never call my husband. And one day that they called me, I was like, do you know my husband, Rod Matukewicz? And they're like, yeah, of course. Like, okay, do you have his phone number on your file? And they are like, yeah, we have it here. It's like, well, call him next time. And I mean, it's like, no, you don't have to be calling the mom all the time. And I think to achieve that work-life balance, employers, schools, community places, government, everybody has to be on the same place and not put all the responsibility on the women's shoulders just because you are the mom. I mean, those kids most times have two parents, right? I mean, like, it's like what it should be. And even if there is a single head of household parent, I mean, we have to find ways how to support women so they achieve that balance, that they feel like they are not surviving every day, but that they are thriving some days. I think in my experience, like I said, I had to first of all wash my brain and stop thinking that I had to be perfect all the time. I had to be the perfect mom, the perfect wife, the perfect employee, the perfect community member, and say, you know what? I remember for many years, one of my models was like, you know, someone is gonna have to take a number today. Not everybody's gonna be first on my list. And some days it was my job, and some days it was my husband, some days it was the board I was involved on. I always gave priority to my kids, to my daughters, but they usually didn't take a number, but other people did, and other organizations did. And the other one is learning to push back. It's okay to say no sometimes. It's not gonna be the end of the world. And you have to learn to who you can say no and to whom you can say yes, but not now, and to whom you need, I mean, what is more important to you that you need to be there for that person or situation. But yeah, it's okay. Push back and rethink the concept of work-life balance. That's my recommendation.
Thank you so much, Cristina. So now let's have you all respond to the following questions in terms of empowerment and motivation. So the first question is, what do you do to support women? And how do you give constructive feedback to other women? So we can start with Dulce, whoever who wants to go first.
I can go first since
I would like to think that I'm a collaborator with women. I think it's really important as women that we support each other through our successes and especially through our failures. And assume a positive intent, even when things don't go well with another woman, to assume that it wasn't personal. In terms of giving constructive feedback, I always, if I have a close enough relationship with that person, I always ask for permission and say, can I give you some feedback? I don't want to be too aggressive and provide that feedback without their feeling okay that I can give them that feedback. I also think it's really important that, for example, there's been many times where I'm serving on several boards and people want me to serve on a board. And if I can't, then I pass that opportunity to someone else. I think it's really important that we advocate for other women. So if there's a job that you're aware of, that you pass that opportunity on to someone that you are thinking of, so that that network continues to grow. If someone needs a reference or needs help or assistance, that you are there for them and providing that reference for them. I think it's really, really, really important. And I would say this just because of my personal life in the last 6 months. It's been incredible having a lot of women supporting me, dropping off things at my house when I least expected it, flowers or a meal. It made a huge difference. And it really reminded me that we all have to take the opportunity for self-care and take the time to understand that what really matters in life. And relationships, although they can get ugly sometimes, are you preserving that relationship versus the outcome that you were looking for? preserving your relationship with women is always so important.
Thank you, Dulce. So Liz?
Sure. I think, this is something that I either heard somewhere or read somewhere, but it's something that has been super impactful in my life. And it's this, just general concept that when you look at yourself and the people around you, your light doesn't dim if you ignite somebody else's flame. So if you support other women, it doesn't give you less of an opportunity or less of a chance to achieve or to gain something. And I say that because I think, for me, something that I am super grateful for is that I've had many champions, and when I think about giving back and supporting other women, I think, and I throw out there, be a champion for other women and be intentional about it. And again, as Dulce and Cristina have both echoed, it comes down to those authentic relationships. So, look around to your kitchen cabinet, to your personal board of directors, to your mentees or other women that you're friends with or colleagues with. And I would say, ask, what can I do for you? Whether that's making an introduction, having a Zoom or a coffee and practicing how to do a salary negotiation, which I've done plenty of times. And the other part is also just remembering to show your humanity. I think, we want to be strong women, especially as Latinas. We have to work twice or 3 times as hard to achieve what our counterparts have to do, but there's so much power in telling your story and being real about the barriers and challenges that you face. And you would be surprised, the doors that will open and the opportunities that will open for you if you're just authentic and you invest in those relationships.
Awesome, Liz. Thank you. So Cristina, what do you think about this question?
Sure. So the question has 2 parts. One is about feedback, right? And the other one is about how do I support women.
Yes,
so
correct.
I think I have received feedback so many times. But feedback, no, and it's good. But feedback is a gift. The fact that someone care enough, for whatever reasons, to give you feedback, that is a gift. And you should receive it as a gift. Now, there are some unwanted gifts that you sometimes receive and you're wondering like, why did I get this? But that's a whole different issue. But the feedback in itself, the act of giving feedback is a gift and we should receive it that way. I think from my personal perspective, when I give feedback to other women, I strive to do it in the way that I would like to receive it. I remember one time, a long time ago in my career, I had to offer feedback that wasn't pleasant to the receiving end, but try to do it in a caring, not just professional, but caring and gentle way that people will appreciate it, despite the fact that is not what they want to talk about or what they don't want to hear. Do it as you would like to get that information if you would be on the other person's seat. But do it, because if you don't do it, and you don't have to be the manager of that person, but if you don't do it, then to what Liz and Dulce refer several times, then you are not supporting other women. When we let, there is that cartoon or whatever that shows like a lady is like my friend or a woman who supports me is the one that, and this is kind of gross, but is the one who tell me if I have toilet paper stuck to my shoes, right? I mean, like when we get out of the restroom and we see a totally unknown person and she's walking that way with toilet paper stuck to her shoes and we don't say anything, we are not supporting women. We don't have to do it, but do it. So that's the analogy I will use. When we let other women fail because we didn't give them the feedback they needed in order to change course, they are failing, but we're failing too. Because guess what? For every woman that fails, we are all failing. Because that's the main thing that happens when they are looking at promotions. Companies are looking at promotions, especially, and I don't want to put all the blame on men because women do that too sometimes. That's another way to fail the female gender, is that they look at, well, last time we hired a woman for this position, it didn't work out. So people have those conversations behind closed doors. So every time we don't do to other women, like give them the feedback they need, we're setting them up for failure and we're failing ourselves.
Thank you so much, Cristina. And I think we learned something here, right? Like the importance of supporting women every time, and we are a strong force, if we help each other. So that's something very important. Thank you. So our next question is, what is something you didn't think you were able to achieve, but you did?
Wow.
Do you want me to go first? I'll go first. Okay. Well, I would say that if you would have asked me 5 years ago what I would be doing, I would have never, ever would have thought that I would take the leap of faith and start my own business. I started doing consulting part-time about 2 years ago. And then earlier this year, I got to thinking, I really want to follow my heart and work on the things that I'm really passionate about. So my love is working with nonprofits and smaller businesses. And so it was really important for me to be true to my heart and listen to that, but I knew that I couldn't do it on my own. And so to what Liz said earlier, your personal boards, I had actually had 5 small business women-led entrepreneurs that I visited with, one being my sister who has eCreative, of course. She pulled me into her circle and they gave me some really good suggestions and feedback. And last year I was just like, nah, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to, do it. No, I'm not going to do it. And they kept on kind of pushing me that directions. Yes, you can do it. You can do it. This is this, do this. And so I would say that out of most of all, it's been able to build my confidence in being my own business owner, never thinking that I would be able to do that. It's still kind of scary because you're having to go out and do your own pitch and selling your services. But having that strength of women behind you and encouraging you, and even when you don't know how to do something, for them to say, yeah, I remember doing that too, but this is what you do, kind of thing. It's wonderful. And although it seems scary, it's growing. It's the opportunity to continue growing. And I know that's when my heart's the happiest.
Awesome, Dulce, thank you. So I don't know, Chris or Liz?
Oops, I can go. So I guess the most recent thing that I thought I couldn't do was actually land the position that I'm currently in. So I work for a Peter Kiewit Foundation statewide funder. I am the first Latina in the organization's 40-year history to hold my position. So going into that, thank you. knowing that and knowing that, you know, in philanthropy and even in the nonprofit and public sector, even across any sector, when you get to a certain level past, you know, like entry level positions, a lot of people require a master's degree. I don't have a master's degree yet. It's still on my bucket list. And I've had a lot of conversations with you, Yudi, about that and finally getting to that. But, you know, yeah, I mean, looking at my history, thinking I don't come from wealth. It's a new concept to me. You know, years before I landed this position, I couldn't even tell you what philanthropy was as a general concept, at least as a sector. But thanks to that personal board of directors, that kitchen cabinet, mentors, and people that have really championed for me, that's how, you know, you can get things done. So again, I just highly encourage you to, yeah, do what you can for others, because you just never know when that might change somebody's life and the people that will come after us.
I agree.
Great, Liz. So, Chris?
Yeah, you know, I've been thinking, listening to Liz and Dulce, and thinking about my own life. And I think probably it's not that I didn't think that I could do it, but I didn't expect that. That wasn't in my life plan, was living my family and my career and my achievements in Colombia and moving my whole self to the United States to marry my husband and reinvent my career here. And I told you about the conversation about the Deloitte research that I read when I was having my first daughter. And I was very new still in the country, and I was having children and trying to find my place at work, and trying to finish my master's degree. And that was a lot. And I at that time I had the attitude that I could do it all and at once. I don't think that way anymore. But yeah, I think taking that big leap of faith to come and reinvent your life in a different country for love, actually. So that was a big leap of faith. I look back and I am like, what was I thinking? But I was in love. So there you go.
Thank you so much, Cristina. That was great. So now let's have our audience. So we have a lot of questions here. So be patient with me because it's hard doing the Zoom and check them. Okay, so we have a couple from Jody. Thank you, Jody. Jody is the chair of political science. So she asked this question: can others speak to Liz's point about women supporting other women in the workplace? What are some of the challenges each of you has experienced on this front? And then she has another question about what are the strategies for dealing with conscious and unconscious workplace bias situations?
I'll take the second question because conscious and unconscious bias is it's a concept or a construct that I have experienced, and I have done research, and I have also trained people on how to identify particularly unconscious bias. So what can you do? Well, first of all, you have to call it. There is a concept, is called microaggressions, and many times unconscious bias come or is expressed in the way of microaggressions. So it's sometimes very difficult to grab it by the tail and say, this is what you did, or this is what you say, and that's what it meant to me. But you have to make an effort to to conceptualize what happened and identify patterns of behavior that may be happening, because that is part of the issue. I mean, if it's the same person and it's in a certain situation, you need to start identifying what is the pattern here, what is happening, and call it out. You know, I know that there are companies that don't take this seriously. I am fortunate to work at a place that they do, and there can be pretty drastic consequences for people who are identified as expressing unconscious bias in a way that is damaging to other people, to their careers or to their self-esteem or image. And I say, I mean, my thought or my perspective on that, Jory, is that you have to identify it, you have to be able to conceptualize it, and you have to be able to call it out. Otherwise, it will keep going.
Thank you, Cristina. So Dulce, you want to chime in?
Well, I was going to actually answer the first question. I would say some of the challenges I've ran into in the workforce is, first of all, being the only woman of color in my early career at the table. That was challenging. But I think also women, because we are fighting for some of the roles at the top, it can become competitive. And so, you know, what do we do to either embrace it or to fight it or hurt each other? And my take has always been to build a relationship with a woman, you know, to say, hey, we can work on this together. How can we work on this together so we have the best result possible? Because I want to learn from you, and I'm sure you want to learn from me. And as much as we can do that, that's the best, you know, approach that we can use. But let's not be throwing each other under the bus. Let's help each other. Because to your point, Yuri, when you said that earlier, when one of us fails, or I think it was Cristina, we all fail, and it's not good for any of us, especially as Latinas in the workforce. We don't see many of us in the workforce or any women of color. We need to be advocating for each other. And it's not really so much from a place of being a victim, but more of solidarity and coming up with solutions together so that it's a win-win for everyone that's involved.
Thank you, Dulce. So anything that you can add, or we can go to more questions because we have more questions.
Sure. I would just add this overall theme of, you know, work like you are on a team with other women. You know, we talk about work-life balance, but there's also this, you know, general experience, which we have all confronted, that sometimes work itself gets really busy and you can't find that balance. So if you have a little bit more bandwidth, pick up the slack for somebody else. It's just like any of the other relationships that you have in your life. It's never going to be 50-50. That's impossible. Sometimes you're going to need to give 60 or 70 to help prop somebody else up while they, you know, have big projects or deadlines or personal issues that are affecting their work. So just, you know, assume good intent, assume you're on the same team, and do what needs to be done to prop each other up, because when you're in that situation, that person's going to be there for you too.
Okay, now you can listen to me. Okay. Okay, we have two questions from our students, Socorro and Cristal. So one of those questions is the importance of networking to get ahead and how to come about mentors. And then the other one is, what are some challenges that you guys have lived through, and how did you guys manage to work with the challenges?
I can start. So with this question about networking, Again, I would just reemphasize authentic relationship building. So not just having maybe your personal end goal in mind, but also just taking the time to build an authentic relationship. And that means getting to know somebody on a personal level before, you're asking for a favor or asking for advice. And also, not just seeing what someone can do for you, but what you can do for that person as well. And the last point that I guess I would make is just go for it. So from personal experience, especially when you look at the Omaha landscape, at least for, Latinx leadership, there aren't a lot of established opportunities for you or for us to tap into, mentors that look like us, that have similar experiences or backgrounds. I'll share something super personal. So Cristina, actually, when I first heard of Cristina, it was at a big, funding meeting that Wells Fargo was hosting for grant partners. And I just remember thinking like, gosh, I would just love to have a conversation with this amazing woman someday. And it took me years before I finally built up the courage to just shoot her an email and say, hey, can we connect over coffee? And now, we're colleagues working in the same sector. I consider you a friend, an inspiration. So just, put those shy feelings to the side and just go for it. The worst, and I applied this to a lot of things in my life, the worst that can happen is that they say no and you move on and find somebody else, but hopefully they'll say yes.
Yeah, I agree. Liz, thank you for saying that. I'll go next, and I'm gonna take it where you left it at with the networking topic. And you're an amazing positive role model for women in general, but for Latina women in particular. So we all think the world of you. So I wish you would have called me earlier to make that appointment.
Me too.
Yeah, to tell me, hey, you want to have coffee? But yeah, I would add to everything that Liz said is very relevant, and I agree. And the other thing is that when so for people like me, I am naturally an introvert. I have to tell this to Liz, like I can put my game face and go to the meeting, and no one knows that I am an introvert because I fake it really well. But I mean it's difficult for me. I mean when I am in a big room with 100 people, 200 people, I am like, ooh, now what do I do? So plan it. If you're gonna do it, if you're gonna do networking in a big event setting, make your plan before you go there. Make sure that if you have access to the invitee list, find out who is going to be there, so you can look for those people, and that will be your anchor to get you to start networking. I am the type of person, like I said, I am a natural introvert. So I prefer networking in small settings or smaller settings than a big event. So for me, that works better. If that works better for you, for some people, then organize your networking that way, rather than expecting to meet, 20 people at 100 attendees event. And I don't overdo it. I mean, quality is better than quantity in the networking area. I double bent on Liz's comment about authenticity. Develop authentic relationships. I mean, you can get 20 business cards. Well, when we go back to having in-person meetings, you can go to an event and collect 20 business cards, but are you really going to become friends with 20 people? Are they going to become a part of your board of directors or your kitchen cabinet? Probably not. So be very strategic and invest your time in developing the relationships that you care about, and don't waste other people's times and disrespect them by pursuing relationships that you know you don't have an interest in. I think it's a matter of respect for other people, just to be honest and say, yeah, but I'm gonna move into this direction. I want to meet Liz, so I'm gonna stalk Liz. No, just kidding. I don't stalk people. But yeah, that will be my 2 cents. But to what Liz said.
And I'm going to say, as a innately extroverted person, that I totally approach it in a totally different route. I will tell you this story because I used to work with somebody that whenever we'd go to the events together, he would say, okay, how many people are you going to introduce? How many business cards? So at the end of the event, let's compare how many people you get introduced to. So it was almost like speed dating, you know, we would go and I love to be out in crowds and meet new people. And so I would say that some advice would be, and Zoom has made it challenging, but I've gotten accustomed to the Zoom medium, but being able to attend organization meetings, getting to know people. I like to build relationships, and then I build off those relationships and ask them to introduce me to people, because they might have more influence with somebody that I would like to meet. And it's not, for me, it's more about, you know, I've gotten feedback where, well, we don't think you're authentic sometimes. And it's like, that's who I am. And extroverted people can come off that way, that we are like salespeople and we want to meet so many people and this and that. But that's who we are. We feed off of meeting people and creating new relationships. Things like today, the panel, I love doing these kinds of things because it's an opportunity to see people. And especially now, because we haven't seen people, it's great to just see how many Latinas do I have an opportunity to do this in a forum and on a panel. It's awesome to do. And if we can create that opportunity, then why not? The other thing I would say about networking is you're absolutely right, Cristina, that you don't want to waste people's time. You don't just want to go and meet people for the sake of meeting people. If it's going to be meaningful, the event that I went to was an HR event. So I really wanted to meet some networks within human resources and really get to what systems are you using, what do you do for this kind of thing, so that I could start building best practices. So it just depends on the situation, but innately I am wired that way.
Awesome. Thank you so much, all of you. So our last question for this conversation is the following. It's from Ana Diaz Orozco, our OLLAS Community Engagement Coordinator. The question is, what advice would you give your younger self?
Okay, I'm gonna go first this time. I think the advice that I would give myself is, being first generation, a daughter of immigrant parents. We grew up very poor. We were 8 of us living in a 2-bedroom home. We slept in a hideaway bed, 5 of us. And at times we didn't have everything growing up. And, you know, you think about that growing up, that I'm not good enough or in comparison to somebody else. And what I would tell my younger self is, never doubt who you are. You know who you are, and don't allow anybody else, even other women, to tell you that you're not good enough. In fact, empower, help other women step into their power so that they can be the best that they can be. I would say I'm at my happiest when I can do that. And for me right now, what feeds my soul is the younger generations being able to do that and create a path and brainstorm and find out what can we do so that they don't go through the same things that I did as a younger person. For example, scholarships, being able to make sure that they know of the scholarship opportunities so that they aren't going to be in debt when they go to college, paving the way for them. So that's what I would say to my younger self.
Thank you.
I can go next. You will be last this one, Liz. I refer to that. By the way, that's a really good question. And I referred briefly to this before when I said that when I was younger and I moved to the United States, I wanted to do everything and to do it at the same time right now. And I think the advice that I would give to a younger Cristina is be patient and good to yourself. You don't have to do everything and to please everybody all at the same time. Be patient, and doesn't it's hard because when you are there, you're in that situation, you think that time is running by and you have so many goals and so many aspirations, and each opportunity that passes you by it means you are not getting where you want to be at, but it will come to you. It will come to you, not in the way that you thought or at the time you thought, but it will come to you because you are valuable, you are talented, and you are putting the effort. It just doesn't have to be at the same time.
I guess, this is something that I've thought about often, and something that I wish I would have learned sooner, or a journey that I wish I would have started way sooner, is to really just start this journey of like decolonization and shed pre-implanted ideas that society forces upon you. As women, as Latinas, especially, like in my household, right? Like the expectation was to, get married, have kids, do, the mom thing. And that doesn't work for everybody. That may not be your life plan, and that's okay. So it's okay to not follow, the path that society or your agents of socialization, whether that's your parents, your friends, your employers, have set out for you. Do you. At the end of the day, the only person that is responsible for your happiness is you. You can't blame it on anybody else. At the end of the day, like, it's you, So respect yourself and be true to yourself, and do what makes you happy. Life's too short.
Thank you so much, Liz. So I want to say that this conversation has been so delightful. Your thoughts and advice make a huge difference. So I hope we can continue having these kinds of conversation in order to uplift more women in their career. So on behalf of OLLAS, I would like to thank all our attendees to join us tonight. Please join me in thanking to all our panelists for this wonderful conversation. Thank you, Cristina. Thank you, Dulce. Thank you, Liz. Has been awesome. So this event has been recorded, and will be posted in our OLLAS YouTube page. So the next upcoming event from OLLAS is on April 6th, and it's Making Latinidad in Hollywood. So hopefully nobody is gonna miss it. And it's gonna be at 6 p.m. as well. So thank you so much, and have a good evening.